This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. This podcast is sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now let's start the show with your hosts, Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 199. Almost to 200 Vigs. We're almost there.
We are getting there. This season is well underway now.
It is. And now making his 10th appearance on the GPL podcast, now taking the lead over our good friend Frank Mazzacco, is Mr. Todd Milewski, and there he is. Todd, how you doing, man? You are now number one.
I'm feeling much better now that I know that I'm back above my buddy Frank Mazzacco, which is probably not at all deserved from somebody who lives on this side of the border. But
well, once we started doing all this and we got you on the podcast, it only made sense to have you on every time we played the Badgers. So you caught up real quick.
I guess I did, yeah. And and you guys know I always appreciate you having me on. And
well, we love having you on.
Much love coming from this side. So,
well, I don't know. All I see is better dead than red in the chat and all the good stuff from our viewers right now. So, oh well, that's what the border battle's about.
That's right.
It's about hate.
People care. I mean, and we'll take all of that we can get right now around Big Ten hockey, right?
Well, let me tell you, Todd. I would say that I think the rest of the Big Ten appreciates the Badgers going in to Yost last weekend and getting a split. I mean, Michigan's not going to run away with it now,
right? And it didn't look especially promising for that after Thursday night when the Badgers can't score again. They're stuck on, after that night, 10 goals through 7 games. And it's, but they did exactly what they had to do on Friday and put the pressure on and get a lead. And that's going to have to be their formula. Last year was, just throw Caulfield and Holloway and Weissbach and the power play out there whenever you can and get a couple goals off of that. And obviously a lot different this year.
Well, Caulfield just got sent down. Maybe he can just come right back to the Badgers. I mean, you take him. He's got eligibility.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Those minor, everything's changed now, right? The whole, you've signed, you've played pro. All these rules are changing. So, hey, yeah, just
it's basically like an NIL deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you beat the vaunted, Wolverines. You guys had a good. You guys, like you said, you didn't play that well that first night.
I didn't beat anyone. I was sitting.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm just. Mr. Mo came in. He did pretty. He kept that game close Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they probably that could have been 6 or 7, nothing. And yeah, I thought he played really well. And he has for the most part. There was a one clunker for him where he got pulled. But all in all, he's kind of like what we've seen. I mean, he's pretty good. He's maybe not great, but he's good enough to keep you in a lot of games.
He kind of reminds me of a few of the Badger goalies we've seen the last couple of years. Like when they're on, they're playing pretty well, but you just don't know what to expect with them consistently from night to night. And maybe as Mo gets more work, he'll start to get more comfortable with his role and playing that. But we kind of saw that in Minnesota with him from times. He'd come in after not playing for a while. He'd have kind of a softie get in, and then all of a sudden he'd get sharp after that. And I think that got Bob a little frustrated. He's like,
yeah, but wasn't some of that also too, Vigs? A lot of times he was letting in the first shot.
Right. And
that's just
what really
tough on everybody.
Bob.
Yeah.
Yep. And so he'd recover after that, but Bob would always make some sort of comment, which I don't see a lot of coaches do when they go after their goalie, who would say, if you're pining so much to get in the game, when you get your chance, you got to take advantage of it. And I have not heard many coaches go after their goalies like that from time to time. But Bob's a little fiery this year. So that's what he's bringing.
He's definitely fiery. On the flip side, Viggs, the Gophers ended up sweeping Notre Dame. It got a little interesting Saturday evening. Gophers take the lead, and all of a sudden Notre Dame right back ties the game within 29 seconds, something like that. But then Brodzinski comes through in the end and gets a nice goal just kind of off the inside of the goalie's chest, his arm, between his arm. They get the sweep and they lead the Big Ten, and really that's the important thing at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they'll take the 2 wins as points in their pocket and just enjoy that. The coach is looking for more, though. He was probably not very happy after Saturday. I think after Friday, he's a little more pleased. They played a little bit more complete game on Friday. They had kind of a slow start, but their goalie, Jack LaFontaine, had a real strong weekend, especially during the first periods of both games. Gave his team a chance to find their legs, made saves when he had to. And then the teams produced enough offense. I think Minnesota right now has enough skill in their lineup where they're going to score 3+ goals most nights they're on competition. So that's what you're expecting out of them. Brodzinski, I don't know if he's like a full 60-minute type player right now, but he's a guy who can shoot the puck and find the net. And that's something that the Gophers need right now. Bob's very critical of the forwards missing the net, and he called them the worst shooting team on the planet after Saturday's game. Coach is a little frustrated after a sweep.
Has he watched the team that I cover?
He doesn't do that until Wednesday, Todd.
Yeah,
so,
I know. Okay.
He waits to give any scouting reports until it's too late to talk to the media. But I did do a little deep dive on some of the stats, and I looked, in terms of shots that are missing the net. The Gophers are 5th in the nation right now in shots that are missing the net. I think it's like 15 a game.
That's pretty consistent with the last 20 years of Viggs.
Yeah, they're just trying to find it, and the percentage is about the same. They're about 5th in percentage too. They're missing about 25% of the shots that they're taking. They're just missing the net, and so that's a lot of possession that Minnesota is just giving away. And I know that they're working on it in practice. They are working on avoiding shot blockers. They're working on putting pucks on net. That's a big message from the coaching staff. So we'll see if they respond.
And what did the Badgers do to finally get some offense going on Friday, Todd? I mean, boy, when they got shut out Thursday, I'm like, oh boy, it's not good.
Yeah, on Thursday they really only had a handful of chances from in front of the net, and that was different on Friday. They were, even if they weren't shooting from right there, they had the traffic there, and they were making things more difficult on Portillo. Which I think, anytime you're in a scoring funk, that's what coaches are going to say, right? Go to the net, get some dirty goals, do whatever you have to do. Don't let the goalie see the first shot. So it's kind of went on the standard thing, and that's kind of what they have to do. They don't have the pure scoring talent that they did last year. Obviously, they have some guys who can score, but they've all been a little snake bit early in the season. So I think this is one of those things that they're not as bad as a team that through 7 games had scored 10 goals. So maybe you start regressing to the mean, or, not regressing, but the other way, going up to the mean in that case.
You can go up or down, Todd.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we're going to see them start to even out at some point. But yeah, it was, they got a really good bounce on the first goal. Let me go through the goals. The first goal went off the player's tape of end of his stick and rolled in the net, even though it tried to make a move and it still went in. So, okay. Second, Tark Baker went in on a forecheck, and the Michigan player had fallen at the top of the crease and tried to clear the puck, hit Baker in the stomach and fell at his stick, and he tapped it in. And the third one, I'm blanking. Oh, it's just kind of a scramble. It comes hard off the backboards, back out, and gets tapped out to Max Johnson, and he knocks it in.
But what I like about that, Todd, is that players are there. They're willing to get the garbage goals. That's one thing I think Minnesota's been lacking for a long time, Viggs, is the willingness to just get the puck on net and get that garbage goal.
Yeah, another player that got called out by the coach this last weekend was Sammy Walker. Bonsko said, Walker's a guy that's a culprit of going by the net and looping and circling. On the last goal on Saturday, he stopped in front of the net, faced the shooter, made it difficult on the goalie. There's a lot of players, they don't like to stop, because it's just extra work to get going again. I think for Minnesota to reach the goals it wants to reach, guys are going to have to play honest hockey, and it starts with the captains on down.
Definitely does. Here's Tim H. Viggs. Any updates on injured players? Kester, Lucius, and Cruikshank.
Kester's trying to come back.
Yeah.
He's skating. It's an upper body injury, so it's not a leg thing. It's just, maybe they're a little nervous about contact with him and how that's going to be ready. And it's probably going to be a game time decision for him, when the trainer's evaluated on Friday, whether or not they want to clear him to play or not. With the other guys, I think it's a little bit longer term thing for them, as they heal up. I don't think it's something where they're going to be ready this weekend, but it's not going to be something that's going to hamper them long term either. They're kind of minor things, but they're just going to be cautious.
Our good friend Jared Klein, for you, Todd, what do you think the crowds will be like this weekend? Usually it's pretty good, but obviously we know both Minnesota and Wisconsin are not seeing crowds like they saw 10 years ago.
Right. And a Minnesota-Wisconsin series in February at the Kohl Center always draws well. You're going to get that 13,000 plus on the Saturday game. In October or in November, during football season, it's tougher. They're still probably going to be their best crowds of the season because there's not a lot of competition for that in terms of drawing visiting fans from other Big Ten schools. So I would say you're probably still talking about a 12,000 announced attendance on Saturday. In the 10 range on Friday, maybe 9,000. How many are actually in the building? Probably significantly less than that based on what we've seen in the past. And I mean, this year and, 2 years ago and before that.
I want to say the scan tickets for Saturday night against Notre Dame was 4,500. The number was told me. I just can't quite remember, but not good, Viggs. Not good.
Yeah, and it's not good. I thought the crowds were really good for St. Cloud. I thought they were really good for Minnesota Duluth. Not as good for Notre Dame. Again, Halloween weekend, not always popular with the fan base with all the other commitments they have going on. So that is definitely a factor. We'll see how the season goes. I think the product on the ice for the Big Ten this year is going to be exciting to see. And I'm looking forward to the games this weekend.
Looks like Todd's lost his microphones, his speakers, his headphones died on him, didn't they?
You all sound like robots right now, so I can't.
Oh, no.
I have to try and change this here. Forgive me.
Well, you sound normal to us, so that's good. So we're good there. But you can fix it.
You guys all sound good to me too.
Yeah.
Now I got you back.
Okay, well, you're a little soft now.
Oh man.
Well, it's like your video Friday night when you were super soft. Or was that Thursday or whatever it was?
Can't win.
No, I can hear you. We can hear you. We just have to be really quiet.
I feel loud, but the rest of the family's sleeping around me here, so in the rooms around me. So.
That's the same for Viggs. He's got kids.
Yep, they're in bed tonight, so that's always good. We've got their vaccination appointments scheduled for next week, so things are just looking up around here.
Well, that's good. We're going to have to make the trip to Madison sometime, Viggs. But the thing is, do we want to go as fans or do we want to cover?
I'm hoping to cover when I go on the road. It's always been a lot of fun to go on a road trip and cover, going down to Mankato or going up to Duluth. It's always fun to find your way around a new building. When I went to Soldier Field, that was quite the adventure, trying to find the Don after the game. You're going through places you're not sure you're supposed to go through, and it's always a lot of fun.
There's plenty of room for you here if you want to show up to the press box.
It's been a little packed at Mariucci with these in-state games. There's a lot of people who have been interested in seeing what the Gophers have so far this year. I think the expectations here are really high for Minnesota's team. I think they haven't quite met them yet. I know the forwards have been getting a lot of critique for missing the net, but it's also the defensemen who finally showed up against Notre Dame. The first couple of weekends, Bob was joking that their brains were in Dinky Town, and you could see that in their play too. They were just kind of all over the offensive zone, not being very careful. And I think you looked at how they played against Notre Dame. That's the recipe for them having success going forward. I think they got points on 5 of the 7 goals, and it all came from just normal offense, which I think is a good sign for them. They weren't forcing things like they had been in the past.
Looks like we have a pretty good contingent heading over to Madison this weekend. Our boy Jared Klein, this is his 23rd year heading to Madison. Taking over the Red Shed Friday before the game. That's what they love to do. I haven't been there since Kessel. Been a while.
That has been a while. Oh,
Jupe, no excuses for you.
Well, I want to say I went to Kessel, and I think I went the year after. And I think the year after is, I think they won that Saturday night, and it might have been Frazee kind of egging on the student section at the end of the game. But, well, here's a great question from John Doherty. Playing across state lines, best Scotty player to play for the Gophers? I'll give that one to you, Viggs. And the best, probably Kessel, but best Minnesotan to play for the Badgers, Todd. Let's go with you first, Todd.
Gophers, it's
all right.
Yeah,
Who
it's Kessel.
counts as a Minnesotan? Does Mark Johnson count as a Minnesotan? Born in Minneapolis.
I feel like you have to be born and you have to play your high school hockey.
Yeah, okay.
And he didn't, did he? Because he was already with Dad down in Madison.
Oh, yeah. He moved. I think they were 5 or 6 when he moved with his dad, his family.
Badger Bob was a Gopher, though, wasn't he?
And a North Dakota player, was he not? Didn't he play 1 year for North Dakota and 3 for Minnesota? It was something like that.
It was weird back then.
Yeah, yeah, no, right. It was who was counting. I don't think there were any. There was any oversight.
Best Minnesotan to play for the Badgers.
I definitely have mine picked. Best Minnesotan player to play for the Badgers.
What's that?
Ryan McDonough.
Oh,
he is a steady player.
Yeah.
Made a name for himself with Creighton-Durham Hall. St. Paul kid. Did very well for Wisconsin. Has now gone on to a nice pro career. Stanley Cup cred.
You in terms of how they were in their college careers, you could put Derek Stepan in there too, couldn't you?
I think you probably could.
I mean, same team, but he had such a presence as a forward on that group in that 2010 team. Yeah, it's not a bad pick. I mean,
it definitely goes more one way than the other.
Yes, I think right. I mean, going back to my era of when I was in school, you had guys like Joe Bianchi and
Tim Krug was with him. I know that.
Yeah, Tom Gilbert. That's a pretty good.
All those Jefferson kids. Yeah,
one of your boys.
Yeah, I played soccer with Tim Krug as a kid, like 3rd and 4th grade soccer. Actually, I had him on my team a couple times. He was a big kid.
Always seemed like there's a little bit of a Hill Murray pipeline going east as well.
And Burnsville back in the old days too. Look at your assistant coach.
Yeah. He's and the Strobels, right? I mean, it's
quite the pipeline.
It is.
Starting with Badger Bob himself.
Sure.
We'll just go with it.
I was surprised to see Strobel commit to Minnesota a couple of years ago after all that drama. He had a great state tournament. Now he's in the BCHL.
That's a little controversial, though, too, isn't it, Viggs?
I don't know if it's controversial. I think he felt like it was a better fit for him at Minnesota than Wisconsin.
Well, I mean, it's controversial that he might not end up here. Some of the posts I saw this week was, hey, switching teams. Do you think he's still going to come?
So hard to tell with Bob and recruiting. He's very tight-lipped about everything around that. And he's got a lot of plates in the air to juggle. You got to figure out, 1, he wants to get older. 2, he's got to figure out who's going to come back. There are some players with some extra eligibility And of course, now you have the transfer portal to deal with. And, I don't think transfer portal is something that Minnesota is going to be heavily involved in, but Cruikshank, he was a nice addition. He's going to miss this weekend. I know he had this one circled on his calendar because he was one of those players that, as signing day approached, he found out he didn't have the spot that he was expecting, and so I think he was looking for a little payback in Madison this weekend, but he'll miss it.
Yeah, we got all these nice rules: extra year of eligibility, transfer. You're not going to get younger that way, Viggs. And
I think you just have to be patient.
The premier programs aren't going to be able to get younger. The Badgers, the BCs, BUs, even North Dakotas. It's going to be tough to get old. I mean, you look at Mankato, North Dakota. I mean, Duluth. It's going to get tough.
You just have to have the right blend. You can't rush guys into roles where they're not ready, and you need to have veteran teams to support young players as they come in. I think Brock Besser going to North Dakota was probably a best scenario for him. He was a young player who wasn't going to be relied on to play tight defense. He was going to be able to go out and score goals, and he's a player that can push a team over the top. You want to have guys like that who can just make that jump and are supported. This year, Minnesota, they're trying to figure out how to get 5 new freshmen into the lineup. And I think you're seeing a little bit of a struggle as those players adjust to the college game because they're not being handed easy roles with veteran players. You've got guys like Huglin and Bros who are trying to, play regular minutes. Huglin trying to play center. Lucius, I think he's a player who's got a lot of talent, but he's just, he's being counted on to provide some scoring and shooting touch. And it's difficult, I think, for him to find a fit right now on the team. And I think he's pressing a little bit. So, these young players, it's not always going to be seamless when they're being counted on for big roles.
When you talk about the transfer portal and how you kind of can remake a team in patching maybe holes that you've found you've developed from, whether it's losing a player earlier than you thought or whatever. I've been thinking about this, that, the coaches that are good salesmen, in recruiting, maybe they're not the same people that are going to be the right salesman for this free agency kind of thing, because that's a different kind of thing. When you're selling a 17-year-old on something that's 2 years away, that's a lot different than when you're selling a 19, 20-year-old something that's right now. And I'm really curious to see.
And has already learned the system and how it actually works.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to be good at that as we go, 2, 3, 4, 5 years into this? That's going to be interesting to me how that shakes out. What coaches are going to be the best at that side of it?
Well, I think it was really interesting with Cruikshank because he's talked about how he picked where to go. The draw for him at Minnesota was, just tremendous facilities to finalize himself as a product for the NHL and tremendous competition and practice. He was looking for that team that was kind of not necessarily looking for a lot of turnover, but looking for someone to just fit in as a piece and be a heavy forward for them. He's obviously, I think, also going through some growing pains, figuring out how he fits in. But, that was the message to him and how he was sold on moving programs.
But in a lot of ways, if you're a team looking for a, top 6 left winger, or maybe even a bottom 6 left winger, and say, you can target someone specifically and say, look, we have a role for you on this team. You're going to be this guy next season, as opposed to, we think you're going to be a valuable forward for us 2 years down the road and maybe another year if we want you to stay in the USHL another year. Those are two different things that I think are going to require different kind of philosophies from what the coaches have to do.
It's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting. For those of you listening live, we're putting up your questions. If you have more questions for Todd, Vigo, or myself, make sure you just send it on over to us, and we'll try to get to it. But first, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, Gopher hockey fans. Jerry Peters here with First Class Mortgage. With Veterans Day just around the corner, I want to take this time to express my gratitude to our military veterans and the families who support them. The VA loan program offers some of the best mortgage terms on the market today. Veterans can purchase homes with zero down payment and no monthly mortgage insurance. If you're a veteran who already has a VA loan, you may be eligible for a streamlined refinance to reduce your interest rate with limited documentation and no appraisal needed. Veterans can also use the equity in their homes to consolidate high interest rate credit cards or to finance home improvement projects. To hear more, call or text me today at 612-940-3291 or send me an email at jerry@firstclasscorp.com. First Class Mortgage's NMLS number is 322842, mine is 480200. This is not an offer to lock into an interest rate under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
All right. Thank you, Jerry, for sponsoring us once again. All right. People with questions, start sending them to us. Got plenty to talk about tonight because it's Badger Week. We're heading down to Madison. Well, we are. The Gophers are heading down to Madison this week. And for some reason, Todd, they were practicing at Ritter, and you questioned it, and I questioned it.
I never heard the answer on that one. Yeah, so they start practicing at Ritter, 200 by 85, when they're going to play at Kohl Center, 200 by 97. When their normal rink is 200 by 100. Maybe there's something you're trying to establish in your game about, winning small areas, even if it's the rink is bigger, but
the corners maybe, Viggs?
I do think that Bob sometimes will have these battle practices where that's the emphasis. And so I think that's one reason why they'll go to the smaller rink is because he wants to see them compete in tight spaces. Obviously they moved back to Mariucci Arena this week for practices later in the week, but I think that's just something that Bob will do from time to time. Is he's very intentional, I think, about the theme of a practice, whether it's skating, whether it's battling, whether it's special teams, whether it's shooting, whether it's creativity. He'll design a practice where that is the focus, and that's what he wants to pin down on.
Well, we thought it was goofy.
I agree. Very goofy.
Is Jared the Mo? Jeez, I can read. Is Jared Moe the answer in net for Bucky? Apparently, Brever is looking out his window at his house right now. He's stalking Jared Moe's parents' house. Way to go, Eric. Ooh. Is he the answer, or is it going to think it's going to be pretty much a split deal most of the season until somebody kind of comes forward there, Todd?
Yeah, that's everything they've kind of hinted at, is that's the way it's going to go. It's going to be a lot like they had last season with Camro and Robbie Beydoun. If we see one of them, go off and do a lot better than the other one, yeah, I don't think there'd be an issue with going with that person, and that could be Jared Moe. I just don't know yet. I haven't seen enough from either one of them yet to say, yeah, this is a guy that should be playing back to back every weekend, getting 90% of the games or anything like that. It's not there yet. So if you've got two guys you like, which they do, why not keep going with it and see who gets hot? And if that ever actually happens.
Well, let me tell you, Viggs, LaFontaine was talking to the media Saturday night after the game, and just make sure he got that question in before he left, because he knew we're not going to hear from Laffer all week. But Laffer's excited. He wants to, it's his bud. I mean, they're buds. He wants to see his friend. He wants to meet him at Middle Ice. He wants to, talk a little trash with him, because that's what that's what friends do. Laffer's definitely looking forward to playing against Mo this weekend.
Yeah, I think there's an understanding between the players, how much you just want to play. You want an opportunity to get on the ice. You put in all this time to get to college hockey. If there's not going to be a net for you, especially with goalies, this transfer portal is a nice deal for him. And I think, Jack is just happy that Jared's getting a chance to play, because Jared's a talented goalie. He has a future being that tall, big, kind of technical goalie, where if he gets enough net time and performs at a level, he'll get a chance somewhere to keep playing. And, they're looking forward to chirping him as well, I'm sure. I'm sure if there's a soft goal, there will be a lot of Gophers around the net reminding him about certain little things.
Well, what did you think about Laffer this past weekend? It seems like he got his game a little bit better together than he had previously, Viggs.
Yeah, I thought Jack was pretty steady this past weekend. He was set for shots with that. I think is a big thing for Jack. He starts drifting sometimes, moving his head around trying to find the puck, or if he's, kind of not ready for the shooter, he's maybe guessing a little bit. He gets off and, pucks seem to find holes that way, or they bounce off him. And one thing that was interesting that he said is, when the game is going well, he doesn't like to freeze a lot of pucks.
No,
he likes to deflect the puck into the corner and keep play going. I thought that was kind of interesting because I've always seen goalies when they're on, it seems like they just swallow everything up. And he said that's not really what he's trying to do. So I'm going to have to change how I evaluate Jack during the game because I always look for that early, whether or not he seems on and square to the shooter.
Here we go. How hot is Granato's seat, Todd? Does he think there's any heat there?
I think it's pretty cool right now.
Mm-hmm.
Winning a Big Ten championship last year obviously helps that.
Yes.
Getting the NCAA tournament helps that because the 3 years before that weren't good, and especially the year before, the 1920 season when they had Caulfield and Turcotte and Holloway and Miller and these guys that all were first round picks at the same time, and it just didn't work. After that season didn't go well, then I think it was getting warm. But he has a 5-year contract that keeps getting extended every year because that's the way that Wisconsin does it.
Mm-hmm.
And at $600K per, that would be a pretty big buyout. Not saying that they couldn't do it, but these are not the times in athletic departments where you're finding a couple $1 million under the couch cushions. So I think the start of the season has been great. Maybe hasn't been good, but I don't know that it's changed anyone's administration the way anyone sees him as a coach here.
Here's a long one for you, Viggs. The imagery of empty seats at Mariucci is being talked about almost every weekend. Any options for getting more students in the building to fill empty seats on low attendance weekends? Last weekend, Halloween weekend, kids are just going to be out partying. We already know that they've oversold the student section. So I'm guessing a lot of those students are kind of spilling out into the other seats. But it's not like they could just say, hey, we need 4,000 students to show up, because you just can't plan for that.
They are trying to do all they can to get 2,000 students there. If they think it's going to take them 2,500 seats sold to get 2,000 students, that's what they're going to do. If they think they need to sell 3,000 student tickets to get 2,000 students there, that's what they're going to do. I think that's been a real focus for the ticket office, is to just try to get tickets in student hands, because when they're there, like they were for Duluth and St. Cloud, the building just has a different feel to it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a lot of where their focus is. Now, for the rest of the building, the other 8,000 seats, they've sold about 4,000 season tickets. So that means that they have about 4,000 seats that they're going to be trying to move, every night. And that's going to be a big challenge, especially for a program right now that is very focused on filling Huntington Bank Stadium. If there's anything that's going to make a dent in the budget, it's going to be selling out the football stadium, especially for a team that just went undefeated in October and has a big month coming up here with home games against Illinois and then again against Wisconsin. That's where the athletic department is going to be really focused. The other part is trying to sell as many basketball tickets as they can, because who knows what's going to happen with that program this year. When you look at Minnesota, they just don't have the staffing to really attack the hockey problem.
And the staffing has just been cut. I shouldn't say cut. A lot of people have left, and which is kind of typical in the corporate world these days, Viggs. Positions aren't being filled. People are being told you need to handle more and more and more. And just similar in the corporate world, that's very difficult to cover all your bases.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, if it was my full-time job to do ticketing for Mariucci, I would try to reach out to every youth hockey association in the state and try to sell them, packages of 100, 200 seats and just discount the heck out of them just to get young hockey players in the building and interested in college hockey. But they don't even really have the staff to do that. I know that they have sent out emails to youth hockey associations trying to do group sales, but it's not like a big discount for them. They're just trying to sell group sales as usual. They're going to have to get aggressive here at some point because the product on the ice is pretty good. I mean, a lot of people like to pick at ticket prices, but $25 for Minnesota hockey isn't that bad of a deal, so that's what you're looking at.
But it's always what you compare it to, though, right? If you got in for $12 back in the day and that's what you have in your head, it's like, why would I pay more than that without thinking everything else that has escalated in that 20 years or whatever it's been since that? That doesn't help. It's just the people's mindset in terms of what the right value is or what the right amount is for what they're getting to see.
Yeah, it's always tricky, I think, with ticket sales because, for the University of Minnesota, their mission is way different than the Minnesota Wild. When you're spending $200 for a lower level Wild ticket to see them play the Blackhawks, that money is going in the players' pockets. It's going in the owners' pockets. You pay $25 to come see the Gophers play, Notre Dame. That money is paying for student athlete stuff. It's different.
So it's number one team in the country. You went to St. Cloud a couple weeks ago. How was the crowd there, Todd?
I mean, it was noisy. I give them that, but yeah, there was. You got those corners and there was no one there. But I mean, that's kind of what I remember too from. I mean, the last time I was there, admittedly, it was like 2009 or 2008, something like that. But I think when North Dakota's there, when Minnesota is there, they fill it up. The other games, it's 2/3 full maybe, and that's how they roll there. That's what the interest level is, I guess. Doesn't matter if they're number one or not. They maybe get a little boost from that, but you just have fans of the team that are going to go.
Vigo just reminded me we had a question earlier today about Mr. Hughlin. How has his games been so far? He's not on the score sheet, Vigs, but I think Motzko still kind of liked how he's kind of embraced his role.
Yeah, I think they're looking at him as more of a battle player than a point scorer at this point. Bob has been fond of pointing out other sophomores and juniors and other teams who are scoring against Minnesota as, their freshman year, they probably had 5-6 points, didn't score until late in the year. It takes time for these players to develop. And what he's looking for out of Hughlin right now is just somebody who can go in and compete and be hard to play against. And I think he's bringing that. I don't think he's one of the players who's making mistakes with the pucks. I think he's playing honest hockey, and I think he's giving them the right effort right now. And they need him with all those injuries in their lineup. They need players like him to do that.
They definitely do. So what about this weekend, Vigs? Minnesota heading in to Madison to play a weekend series. Both games on Bally Sports Plus, Bally Sports North Plus, if I can get it right. Jeez. So the games are on TV, 7 o'clock Friday, 8 o'clock Saturday. What do the Gophers need to do to be successful this weekend, Vigs?
Well, I'll be interested to see if they put pucks on net. That's been an emphasis all week from the coaching staff, and last weekend was stop putting the pucks into shin pads. That was the first couple weekends. And now it's don't start shooting over the net. Jared Moe, big tall goalie. Bob's been really critical about players shooting up high on big goalies. You're just making it easy for them, putting it right in their gloves where they can catch it and freeze it. You got to make big goalies get down in their butterfly and protect the bottom of the net and deal with traffic. That's always the key for that kind of goalie. So that's what I'll be looking for out of the Minnesota forwards. For the defense, I'm looking to see, can they carry over their game from Notre Dame where they're real patient and played within themselves to a game like Wisconsin. Sometimes these games between Minnesota and Wisconsin lately have gotten real fire wagon hockey. I think both teams like to get into it and get up and down the ice. Is that going to happen this weekend or not? Because I think when Wisconsin had that veteran team last year, they were much more disciplined. But that's really the only Granado team I've seen maybe the last, 8 years, how long he's been there, that was disciplined like that. Usually it's fire wagon hockey with Wisconsin, so it can be entertaining, but probably frustrates the heck out of the coaches.
Okay, on the flip side, Todd, what do the Badgers need to do to be successful this weekend?
Well, on the offensive side, they need to, come back with what they did against Michigan the second night. In that they were getting pucks to that and having the traffic in front of that, but also that they were creating a lot of those plays out of their forecheck. They were a lot more aggressive Friday than they were Thursday, and fast and getting at guys and making those Michigan defensemen who, there's a lot of talent there, obviously, and just like there is with Minnesota defensemen, making them make quick passes that they might not be fully confident in, and seeing where that goes. Can you make a turnover off of that? Is it going to be a bad pass that ends up in the neutral zone and you're able to do something with it? On the back end, they need to watch out for those quick counters by Minnesota. I think that's something that's always given them trouble, and not just against Minnesota, but against Penn State. I remember Ohio State doing this a couple of years ago when they had Lazinski and those guys. Just the way that when the puck turned over in the neutral zone, they were on their heels, the Badgers as a defensive unit. And they can't allow that to happen because we've seen a lot of odd man rushes turn into goals when Badgers and Gophers to play at the Kohl Center. I just have that in my head. I think was it 9-2 or whatever, 5-6 years ago. Just seemed like there was a 2-on-1 rush every 4 minutes in that game.
Racehorse hockey.
Yeah, and when that's always coming at you and you're not able to do much going the other way, that's a tough way to play. And so they want to avoid that as much as they can.
All right, Viggs. What's your prediction for this weekend?
I mean,
he's struggling, folks. He's struggling.
I think it's going to be another sweep for Minnesota. Ooh. I'm a little nervous about how they're going to play after the coaching they're getting. This team, I don't know if they've found kind of their rhythm yet in terms of leadership and attitude, but the talent is definitely there. And it's almost to the point where if they don't beat themselves right now, it's going to take a good team to take it to them. That's the risk right now with Minnesota. When they've given up goals, it's not necessarily because they're getting outplayed. Even against St. Cloud and, most of that Duluth series, when they were getting goals against, it was because they were making their own mistakes. They were taking bad penalties. They're turning the puck over. Didn't see a whole lot of that against Notre Dame. I thought they played within themselves a little bit better. But that's kind of what I see coming up this weekend is smart hockey, staying out of the box, putting pucks on net, sweeping.
Bold. Very bold. All right, Todd. What do you think?
I think if the Gophers win Friday, they'll win Saturday.
Oh.
But I'm not ready to necessarily call it that way yet. I think that the Friday game is going to be I just have this feeling in my head that it's going to be 6-5 one way or another. But I have no reason for saying that.
I would love that, though. That's old-time hockey right there. Let's get some scoring going on.
Wisconsin hasn't scored.
True. True.
They're either going to be either on the 5 side or the 6 side of that. And
yep.
I don't know why I have that feeling based on these games the 8 games that I've seen so far. But this is one of those weekends where it's, you get emotions going a little bit more than they have been for, even playing against Michigan and obviously St. Cloud and Army and Michigan Tech. It's going to be a little bit more from a Wisconsin side and maybe to an extent from a Michigan side or from a Minnesota side with the Mo thing. There's going to be some heads that may not be in the right space. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to call for a split, I guess. I'm going to say the Badgers get the first one and the Gophers get the second one.
I just have a good feeling, though, that we're going to see shot totals like in the 40s for the Gophers and 20s for the Badgers. And I just don't think that's a recipe for Bucky's success.
No. Trevor doesn't think 5 goals against Laffey will happen. But
not on 20 shots either, because I don't think Wisconsin is going to be able to generate the kind of offense unless Minnesota starts taking a bunch of bad penalties, which could happen. Minnesota, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be drawing many penalties and seems to be taking too many.
Yeah, but the Badgers are also 1 for 25, 26, 25, something like that.
1 for something.
Yeah.
Something tells me you're writing about that this week, Todd.
I'm not actually. Well, it might end up in something, but I've written about it a lot, and I just lost count in the last couple of days. It was 1 for 20 going in the last week.
You were spoiled the last couple of years.
Well, last year I was
definitely last year.
I mean, that was otherworldly at some points of the season. The series up at Mariucci was one of them that they seemed like they could throw out any, hit those 5 guys and do anything with it.
So what are you working on for this week then, Todd?
I have a Jared Moe story coming up. Talk to him and his dad, and have some stuff from last season from Jack LaFontaine, who was pretty defensive and not exactly thrilled with Gopher fans.
Do you have Jack on record going after Jupe? I think that should be in the story.
Not by name, but
you can put in the parentheses.
When I called him Trader Mo,
some of us know who he is referring to. Yes, but yeah, I asked Jared, whether he thought there was anything that was, over the top, that was too much, and he said no. It's I expected, some heat from it, and I don't think he read everything, obviously, that was out there. But
it was just a tweet for me, just a tweet.
Right. And you're going to stir something up when you make a move like that. And I think he knew that. I hope he knew that, because if he didn't, that's a bad misread of the rivalry and the situation. But I think he's in a good place.
I'm guessing his close friends are probably fine with it, but I'm guessing some of his other teammates, Figs, probably not happy went across the river.
Oh, yeah. I think Jack is okay with him going across the river, but I think there's some other players who are very, very excited to score on him. Very, very much so. There could be some skates near the crease and things like that after the whistle. It'll be a fun sideshow to watch during this weekend, I think.
I am looking forward to it. I hope it's Friday night, Mo and Laffer. Let's just get right to it. Not this Saturday. Let's start the series this way. Let's get some bad blood going. We need some good bad blood in this series.
Mo is scheduled for Friday.
There it is right there.
Must see TV then.
Right?
It's gonna be. I'm jacked for it.
Do you think there's any chance if he played well, he'd get 2 nights against Minnesota, Todd?
Ooh.
Because I feel like Granato did that a couple times the last couple of years, where he's had a goalie where he's gotten into this stretch of alternating, and then one of them will play well on Friday and he'll give him another chance on Saturday, and that kind of backfired a couple times.
Yes, and I don't. My initial reaction is no, that I think he's pretty committed and he wants to make sure Camero gets time too, because he thinks he's going to need both of them through the season, and he doesn't want to lose someone mentally this early. Not to say that that's necessarily what would happen if you don't play in a weekend, but I think that's what's been presented as this is the way we're doing it. And if you change that it could get looked at the wrong way by whoever doesn't get that opportunity.
Right. Unless you're Jess Myers, you're not always looking to stir up goalie controversies. So,
are you crazy?
I think it'll be Jack both nights for Minnesota. Boynton's got an illness that he's picked up now that he's come back from his nasal surgery,
deviated septum.
Yep, and Bob was very quick to say it's not COVID. So we'll see.
We will see. Well, thanks for coming on with us again there, Todd. We always appreciate it.
I'm honored. I'm thrilled that you would think of me again in these situations.
We always think of you, man. We might even have to sneak you on next week for our 200th show.
Big 200, yeah.
Oh, big 200. Doing this 11 years, Vigs.
Amazing. Whew. Amazing.
I'm surprised. Yeah. So
appreciate you, Todd.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Thank you, guys.
You're a solid guest, and yeah, you might be for the other team that we don't like, but that's the best part about it.
If he covers the other team, he does not actually.
No. I bet you, and he was young. He was going to Badger games as a fan.
This isn't like Jess Myers either, where he's putting on the Bulldog and
Well, that's a little different.
Todd's always been a journalist.
I'm not going to deny that. I mean, when I was a kid, yeah. But if you
and the thing is,
I'm not a kid anymore.
But the thing is, as a kid, you turned it into a career. And you know what? And that's just like the greatest thing ever. I mean, obviously you're covering other sports is really awesome too, but you're a fan. That was your team, and now you're covering that team. And then obviously it changes you emotionally when you cover the team. It always kind of changes you, but you're still doing that.
Yeah, I've had to give up a lot of fandoms in this career. I mean, one of them I can see over my shoulder. I still root for the Brewers. That was my team as a kid. I mean, I was part of the Brewer fan club from age 2, so that's something I haven't had to give up.
You're not going to cover the Brewers as your beat?
That would be his dream job right there.
No.
You can't do it? You couldn't do it?
I had to for a while, and so I had to shelve a lot of that, and that was tough. But you're right. I feel like so often how lucky I am to be doing this as a job. I mean,
yeah.
It's kind of crazy that someone pays me to cover college hockey, and that's I try not to forget that. And I had some years there where I was covering the team for a long time, then I got taken off of it, and that hurt, because you've had your dream job and you have it taken away from you. That's rough, but I got incredibly lucky again, and the State Journal brought me on to cover the Badgers.
Well, it's always great coverage, and we follow you. I stalk you when you're doing your Facebook Live.
I do appreciate the comments you throw in there.
Yeah. Throw a few chirps in when we can.
I was ripping on my own team. I'm like, he's talking about how bad the Badgers were that night, and I'm kind of like, well, at least you're not 1-12-1 against the Dogs. I'm like. So I appreciate you throwing it on there. It's always just fun just watching you, and so it's great content you've got over there. So as always, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Well, Vigs, what have you been working on recently? I know you're thinking about a little Cal Dietz stuff. Is you still kind of
still pending, Jupe? Life is getting in the way. I'm just trying to tread water and keep my kids in school, and I had a little illness to deal with today with my daughter, but she's fine. It's not COVID. Me and Bob are both aligned there. So we're just trying to keep things humming. And, I try to tweet out stuff from the press conferences that I'm able to attend before and after the games. And, I hope people are enjoying that so far.
I bet you they do. So, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. And obviously we're going to thank Todd for coming on with us. Always great to have him on. Our show next week will be number 200, so we're looking forward to that. We got Paul Caponegri scheduled to come on, but preview a little of the Ohio State series, and got a couple guests scheduled to come on as well. I'm not going to let you know who it is. It's going to be a little surprise. For those of you currently watching live, stay tuned for some overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast.